Hey there, and welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming Podcast. It is great to have you join us. This podcast series features those who have gained victory over a life encounter. With that life experience, we encourage those who are experiencing something that might seem to be insurmountable. We advance and encourage others by passing forward evaluated life experiences. We have three objectives in this podcast series. We want to encourage those who are engaged in any type of life encounter by offering to walk with you to help you gain victory over anything that might seem impossible. We want to share our experience to help you. Our second objective is to help you develop a confident resolve that there are multiple options to get past any life obstacle. It's a matter of thinking into the situation. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you are facing a dilemma resulting from a previous decision you wish you could reverse, we want to help you think into all of the facts and factors involved in making an informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business manager, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture Company who is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we feature Kristy Marie Houle, who describes her early childhood as being troubled enough that she chose to leave the house at 12 years old. That was just an incredible, bold move, but she felt resolved that she had to do that. She, instead of proclaiming to be a victim, made the best out of her life. That is, she knew she had a bad situation, but she was able to move in with her dad, who ended up being a positive influence on her, and she took what could otherwise be thought of as a troubled life, and she could have proclaimed herself to be a victim, but she's made the best out of that, and she is passing forward her positive life experiences. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from Kristy?
I'd admire Kristy because she was in a bad situation, but she didn't let it get her down. She was determined, like you said, at 12 to leave because she knew there was something better out there. And she's made all that she's gone through a positive for herself. She's very upbeat, got a beautiful smile, and made a promise she would never treat her family like she was treated. And she's succeeded. So I say she's taken a troubled life and made it a blessing and made it a positive.
Kristy has a very positive story of taking a bad situation and continuously on a journey, moving onward and upward. Let's listen and learn together. Kristy, thank you so much for joining us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in just a brief summary of your past, where you've been, with an emphasis on you have overcome the past. You are adapting to the present. You are going onward and upward. Kristy, that is what our podcast is all about. That is what our listeners want to know about. How did we overcome maybe some very ugly, abusive, whatever of the past? But we're not focused on that. We are focusing on today and forward, evaluated life experiences to advance others who may be going through something similar what we're experiencing. Kristy, great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here, Ron and Marty. I appreciate the offer.
Kristy, can you give our listeners just a brief overview of a little bit of your past? Again, we're not here to dwell on the past, but just so they know a little bit of the way things have been and what you've overcome. And then we're going to focus on, well, how did you overcome?
Sure. Well, and I appreciate your message. Sort of live by that mantra of I'm not a victim of my past. I actually don't even really talk about my past very much. So a lot of folks that even know me as an adult, they would be surprised to hear that I had such a difficult past. But I do come from a childhood of a lot of abuse, a lot of neglect, both physical and mental, and a lot of alcohol, a lot of addiction, a lot of moving homes and different people in and out of my life. And so at the age of 12, I decided that if I stayed in that environment, it would probably be the end of me. And I did not want to become a victim to my surroundings. And I didn't want that to be my identity because I knew even at 12, there was so much more to me than what was happening in my life at that time. And so I At about 12 years old, quickly made a decision one night to leave that environment on my own in the middle of the night. And luckily, things worked out really well for me. I ended up being able to live with my father, who is a very loving, caring, generous man. But I had not been able to spend a lot of time with him. And from the age of 12 on, I started to repair and heal and figure out what I wanted to do with the sort of the beginning of my life, is what I really thought of it as at 12 when I left that environment that I was in. This was really the beginning of my life, is when that started.
Thank you for that summary, Kristy. There are some of our listeners who would say, and are thinking right now, wow, you left, albeit in an abusive environment. It's something you were used to, at least you had a home. But now I picture you're walking down the street, and I guess in some degree, thankful that you weren't reported missing right away and police returned you to that environment, but you were able to, go to your father's house. He accepted you and you kind of started a new life. Is that a quick summary?
Yeah. So in essence, I did end up at the police department, and my mother was called, and the folks that were the abusers were called. And I knew that if I went back to that environment after that incident, that I may not come out of that healthy or even maybe alive. And so in that moment in the police department, I was given the option of going back home with the abusers or going into foster care. My father was not an option at that point, and I chose foster care. And so as we sat there for hour after hour, my father did show up and I was allowed to leave with him as opposed to foster care. But I would have chosen foster care over going back to that same environment.
Now, how long were you in foster care before you?
Well, I didn't actually make it to foster care, because in the hours that we were in the police department, when they realized that they had a situation and that I did have another parent that was willing to step in and take over the parenting, we really just made that decision in the police department. And I never even had to go to foster care. I just left with my father that late that night or early in the morning hours, I guess.
And am I understanding correctly, Kristy, you lived with your biological father?
Yes.
So you started a new life, in essence.
A new life.
Wow. Now, you came from, just at least an emotionally abusive past, and maybe more than that. But was it a quick recovery? Did you spend several years trying to make that transition? How did you actually, not only how did you do it, but how long did it take for this transition to feel like you are taking root, so to speak, and yep, you're in a good place?
Well, I think, Ron, when we talk about recovery and healing and mending, I don't know if that ever really stops. I think there are even times in my adult life now, and I actually just celebrated my 50th birthday a couple days ago. And, so even as a 50-year-old woman who's had a lot of experiences and a lot of success, and I have a beautiful family of my own, I still will find myself in times where something will be a trigger or something will come up in me, or I will see something and I will need to sort of do that healing and repairing internally when that happens. And so I don't know if I'll ever totally recover or heal. I think that's a lifelong ongoing process. But I think at that time, because I was surrounded by people that actually loved me, and it was really the first time in my life that I had known what unconditional love and support and encouragement was, that I healed a lot quicker than most people might if they're going into a different type of situation after abuse and neglect. And I was in my middle school years, so that kind of doesn't help because as middle schoolers, we struggle. Even if we come from the most perfect, loving homes, we have issues as middle school children because that's such a strong developmental age for both social emotional health, physical maturity, emotional maturity. And so I think once I reached high school, I was pretty confident and I was a little bit more comfortable in my own skin and had really gotten that healing process underway once I had gotten into high school.
Our listeners are very interested, as well as Marty and me, discuss a little bit about confidence. And was there a point in your life where you maybe were very low in confidence and you learned how to increase your confidence? Because right now, talking with you, if people could see the smile on your face, your radiance, you would think that that's not the Kristy of what you're describing. But talk to us a little bit about confidence. Was there maybe the first 12, 15 years of your life where you really lacked confidence?
Sure. I mean, there was a lot of living in fear. I was scared a lot. any move that I made, definitely between the ages of 4 and 12, I at any moment didn't know what the reaction was going to be from my abusers. And so I probably didn't have a lot of confidence. I think something that I was fortunate to have, though, was I was always more of an outspoken kid. I always had this independent streak, which, a lot of times people don't see things that they can take from a difficult childhood or a difficult situation. But I really think that because I was put into a situation where I did have to depend on myself, I really did have to take care of myself. My brother and I had to, make sure we had clean clothes and that we had food, and we really had to grow up very fast. We did not live in an environment where people were doing those things for us. And so I think coming out of that gave me independence. And so for that, I feel kind of fortunate that I was in a situation where I had to build this independence and I had to really rely on myself and to have that confidence. And I think it's a choice. It's a decision that you have to make. Am I going to kind of stand up and be confident and know that that did not define who I am as a person? That was an issue and a problem on someone else's end. It wasn't my problem. It wasn't my issue, and it wasn't my fault. And so I have to had to sort of tell myself that over the years and really feel comfortable in who I was becoming and make that decision every day that I need to be confident and I need to be kind to others and I need to be who I needed at those ages. That's the person that I want to be for my family and the people around me. And Ron, it's funny that you say that, because most people that meet me, that know me, have my own podcast. I work in all different areas of professional development and consulting. There's probably not a single person that would meet me or look at me or hear one of my presentations on education and say, oh gosh, she probably had a really rough. Most people would look at me and think, wow, she really has had her stuff together her whole life. And she must have come from this really great home and background and all these things. And so it's really, people don't really know. It can be really deceiving, someone's outward personality from what they've went through internally.
That is very well said. And I sincerely, on behalf of our listeners, appreciate what you just said. There are many of us who have overcome our past, and boy, we are nothing like we used to be in a previous life. But I'm very interested in the trigger points. And let me take one question at a time. You, I think, very clearly said, nothing of the past can be expunged. That is, different conversations, different environments, different people can be a reminder of the past, but you have learned to, if I can use the term, manage those things of the past to where it may trigger a thought, but you know how to deal with it. Have I mischaracterized anything, Kristy?
No, you're exactly on point. And a great example of that is kind of talked about how things will come up to the surface, things will always sort of be there, even small things. And so I remember as a child, we would have to ride our bicycles to the store to get certain items for ourselves or, for our mother or whoever was at the house. And I remember specifically going into a store, probably at about the age of 6 or 7, I'd ridden my bicycle and I'd gotten a gallon of milk. And when I got the milk out, I dropped the gallon of milk. Well, you know what happens when you drop a gallon of plastic milk. The plastic breaks open, milk goes everywhere, and you have to go back in and get more milk. Well, I didn't have enough money to go back in and get more milk. And I knew that if I arrived home without the milk, it would not be good for me. It would not be, oh, it's okay, we understand, don't worry about it. It would be much more severe consequences for not coming home with the milk. So that was a really traumatic incident for me. And even to this day, and my husband is so kind and understanding and compassionate. When we go to the grocery store, if I buy a gallon of milk, I still have to tightly secure that gallon of milk. Like I hold it very tightly and I make sure that it's secure in the car, and it's just a trigger. It's a thing for me. And it's a very small thing, but I don't let that incident or that trigger overtake the whole trip to the grocery store or the whole day. I just kind of have it mentally tucked away. And I manage my reaction, I manage my response, and I manage how I might respond if the milk did break, right? I have to really think about those things. And that, I think, is part of that self-control, the confidence, the healing that obviously I know it's ridiculous to think at 50, if I drop the milk, it's going to be, traumatic. but I've learned how to manage that over the years.
In the context of your past, how did you, or did you have to very consciously make a decision, a determination? I will not carry anything of my past into raising my children, into my marriage. The like is, I know there's some people who have somewhat unconsciously carried their past into the present. And our listeners are going to be very interested in knowing how possibly you dealt with that.
Yeah, I think that is something that we all try to do, is when we come from difficult situations, is we want to break that cycle, whether it's the cycle of addiction, whether that be drugs, alcohol, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. And I think, unfortunately, that some folks are not able to break that, and they just have a tendency to replicate how they were brought up or things that were done to them, because that's all they know. They don't know any different. They don't know any better. And so with me, I have 3 children. My oldest son just graduated high school and is moving on with his adult life, as sad as that is for his mother. It's been a rocky couple of weeks. So he is a wonderful, wonderful, compassionate, loving young man, and has so much going for him in his life right now. I couldn't be more proud of him. And then we have another son who is going to be a freshman this year in high school. And then our youngest son is 12, and he'll be finishing up his last year at middle school. So I knew when I started having children that I never wanted them to feel, I know that my kids are going to feel disappointment, and on occasion they might feel like they failed, and on occasion they might feel like they could have done something better, or that, and that's good for kids to feel those things, right? But I never wanted my children to feel that they were not loved unconditionally, and that they were not supported, and that we did not have their best interest at heart. And so that's really what I have tried to instill in my children is, you might fail, you might not be successful at everything you try. This might not work out for you. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but we are here for you. We love you unconditionally. And we might be stern with them at times, because children need structure and discipline. It is a great balance of love and concern and compassion and care and structure. So I had to learn how to put all of those pieces in to raise my children, and not have even a glimpse of my past seep into that parenting. And there's been difficult times, but I think because I wanted it so much as a child, I didn't get it. So I'm pouring all of that out into my children.
Are you able to live and demonstrate unconditional love? Possibly something you feel you did not have in your upbringing. You may have been a part of some abusive past, physically, emotionally, but are you able to get beyond the past and live the present and the future, such that you're not living that past by virtue of your parenting, any trigger points as Kristy has described? Are you able to work beyond that? Do you have the resilience to live past and move on beyond whatever has occurred to you in the past? Passing on what you want life to be and not what you have experienced requires some very special skills, resilience, and an attitude that I'll not pass on what I had to happen to me from any time in the past. It is a matter of dealing with, but moving beyond the past. I want to encourage you to seek any help you may need to help deal with, manage any past hurts. That is very well said. Marty has a point, but I want to make one point. One of our mantras, Kristy, is we are chain breakers. We will not carry on the past, and you are a model of that, and it's through self-awareness, I believe. That is part of it. These things have happened in the past, but I'm a chain breaker, and I will not carry forward anything else yet. Marty?
I just want to say I admire you at 12 to have the maturity to say, I'm leaving. I am not going to put up with this anymore at 12, because like you said, all the emotions that go through a girl at 12 and the hormonal change, but to have that resolve, I'm sure there was a certain feeling, scared, so much determination. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And I
Right?
have to throw in too, Marty, that all credit to my grandmother. I had faith. And I think that that is something, well, I don't think, I know that that is the main catalyst for where my life has went, is that I have faith that God was with me through every single thing. I've turned to him for everything and I've never wavered in that. So I think having that at a young age, knowing he was going to sort of see me through everything, and he still does everything that good and bad he has his hand on. But I think having that strong faith really helped me have more courage, and sort of had, he was sort of my companion even through some of the scariest times. So I think that really was something that was helpful for me as a child, that I had that.
That is very well said, Kristy. Marty and I are people of faith, and we do emphasize our faith, that sometimes it may seem, our foundation may seem to be very cloudy because of the environment and so forth, but underneath all of that, or through the smoke and haze, so to speak, we know that foundation is there. But Kristy, I want to ask you, for the possible 12-year-old who's listening right now, who may be saying, Mrs. Houle, I'm living that environment right now. I want to ask you from two perspectives. One, the younger child who is where you were, but I want to ask you as a second part of this, the adult who is trying to overcome that past. But if there is a 12-year-old or a younger person who is experiencing right now the lifestyle you had, what is the call to action, Kristy, you could do to encourage that person?
Yeah, I think for young people that are struggling in an environment that is not ideal for them or is harmful, I think we have to differentiate a lot of times between environments that are just maybe not what you want them to be. Kids that don't get their way or get their phones taken away and whatever is much different than a child that is really truly in harm's way. And, there's physical abuse, emotional abuse, and things that are impeding the function of that child's day-to-day life. So I always like to differentiate that, because, there's a lot of kids that just that get upset because they don't get their way, and that's not really an appropriate environment. They just are mad at their parents. But I think that my advice would be, my call to action is to find someone that you trust, someone that understands your situation, that is maybe detached from the abusers or the parents or whoever in your home is doing the neglect and the abuse. Because a lot of times what happens is, if you go to someone that might be friendly or acquaintances with the abusers or friends of the abuser, the first thing they're going to do is call that person to come and get you. And that's not what is usually the best outcome. And so I think turning to someone that is maybe not attached to the abuser and trusting someone and sharing with them what's happening, and how, there's always teachers and people in school systems and counselors and social workers that you can reach out to, documenting things that are happening. We have video cameras now, video recorders, so that people will actually believe you when you tell them what's happening. That's kind of hard for kids these days, and just having a level head, not doing anything rash. And also knowing, for these kids that are going through this, some advice is there is something better waiting for you on the other side of this situation, whether it's when you're 18 and you get to leave, or whether you get out now. There is something better waiting for you, and you are not just the environment that you're in. That's not how you should identify. It's things that are happening to you are not making you who you are, and that you can break away from that.
The same type question, a call to action to the parent who may be, who knows, in their 30s, 40s or beyond, but they feel they are living their past and they aren't the chain breaker. It's difficult for them to overcome what they may have experienced, something similar to emotional abuse and so forth. How would you address that person and maybe bring into your life? Did you seek and get therapy, coaching, anything of that to help you through everything? Or were you strong enough, independent enough that, hey, I'll do this on my own?
Well, to answer your question, there are other folks my age, or, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, struggling with their past and things that have happened to them. Actually are struggling with that with one of my siblings who was in the same environment. He has not ever been able to shed the things that happened to us, and his life has sort of spiraled out of control over the last several years, and that, I believe, is what the cause is. And so he has sort of repeated some of the cycle with his family and his children, and his life is not ending in the way that we wished it would based on our childhood. And so I think getting therapy, I myself have never been to therapy for this. I've never talked to a professional about my past. I can tell you though, 6 years ago, my father passed away, and that was probably just as traumatic for me as on the flip side though, because from the age of 12 to, however old I was 6 years ago. It's a lot of mental math for me to do right now at 10 o'clock in the morning, but you get the picture. He had been the sole provider of love and compassion and encouragement. And he was my rock, and he was sort of the best person that I knew. And he sort of, in a sense, I feel like he saved my life. And when we lost him very suddenly, I wasn't ready for that. And so I struggle more with the loss of him and how to continue forward with my life without that person than I actually do my past. So I did get a little bit of grief counseling when he passed away. But, I've had a lot of, like I said, my faith has gotten me really far. And I had other folks in my family that knew the history that I would, talk to, and we could share those stories and share our feelings with, that made me sort of stronger as the years went on.
Several things you said, Kristy, I think are real bylines. One is have connected relationships. Get with someone with whom you can trust. That was your dad, that was your grandmother, and God created each one of us to function best with connected relationships. And as we are able to have those connected relationships, and Marty and I call it develop that safe space, we're able to talk with freely, knowing you will not judge or otherwise label me. But when we're in that safe space, we will feel free to discuss whatever might be bothering us. And I think that is just absolutely paramount, that we get with those kind of people. You also mentioned the word rock. One of the mantras is Marty and I are encouraging men to be the rock of their family. There's nothing in that statement that men are better than or women are subservient to man, nothing in that at all. But men, come on, let's step it up and be a place that our children, our friends can know that we are living our life on founded convictions. And when that is done, Kristy, I think a lot of people will feel very confident being in our presence. And I really sincerely appreciate the confidence, the vibrance in your voice, your personality, your disposition. It's just great to know that.
Thank you so much. It's been a journey, and it will continue to be a journey. And my husband, be remiss if he listens to this and I didn't mention him, but he has been amazing. Like if you're going through something from your past and your spouse, you haven't opened up to them, and it's really hard for people that have been through abuse to be vulnerable. Really, really hard. And especially for someone like me who, to be vulnerable was seen as a weakness as a child, and would usually result in anger or violence. So we didn't show weakness as children. We didn't do that. We didn't cry. We didn't show our feelings. We didn't do those things. And so as an adult, that was something I had to learn how to do with people that I knew I could trust, was open up and be vulnerable, to allow them in to help me heal.
And that is very well said. Wisdom, Kristy. On behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you for sharing your life, very meaningful. The word journey is another term that Marty and I strongly identify with, that we're always on a journey, getting better, going upward. We live by the mantra that everything worthwhile is uphill, and we are going to encounter setbacks and so forth. But in the end, we're always going upward, better. Thank you for sharing your life.
And thank you, Ron and Marty, for having me on the show.
Thank you. Kristy has a very positive message while projecting a very confident persona. She has been able to process everything in her past in accordance with her values, her Lord, and she is moving forward, not in total forgetfulness of the past. She clearly remembers the past, but she has chosen to not carry her past forward. She speaks with that very confident resolve that she has overcome the past by virtue of not carrying forward into her current life, current marriage, child raising, those things that have occurred in the past, but she can develop various triggers to where the past can be recalled, but she knows exactly how to manage that. You may feel you're dealing with something of your past, that you're having a problem to process, you're carrying forward some recollection of. There is something about a shadow, so to speak, that lingers in your subconscious. Or if not you, there may be someone within your circle of influence who is carrying forward some memory of the past, and they're not able to shake it. They're not able to process information as well as Kristy is. I wanted to encourage you, if you are the one who's carrying forward any memories of the past that are dominating your current thought process, or if not dominating, can be invoked or triggered to influence your current thinking, or if there's someone within your circle of influence whose past is tending to have an influence on their current life, I want to encourage you, reach out, work with a person with whom you have trust. It may be a therapist, it may be a coach, it may just be a friend who has what we believe the 4 most powerful words that can be spoken to a person: we believe in you. When you're working with a person who truly believes in you, they share your values, they want to advance you, they want to do whatever is possible to help overcome the past with no stigma, no labeling, no judging. They just want to help you advance because they know your potential. I want to encourage you, get with that person. Marty and I are willing to help. Reach out. Kristy is as well. Contact us and allow us to help you. Coaching is a discipline that can help people overcome their past, to deal with those things that are troubling, that may be keeping you from operating at your full potential. Contact us at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Marty and I are certified life performance coaches through the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. We'd like to have the opportunity to work with you. Let's schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session through which that will help you determine if we are the right people to help you develop your full potential that God has created you to have. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with this podcast series. We hope you will want to subscribe. We hope you'll also share this podcast with your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connections, your Twitter and Instagram communities. The more we share, the greater the benefit we will be in sharing each other's triumphs, those things that have not worked well in the past. The greater opportunity we have when we choose to engage and comment with each other, to reach out and help those who might be triggered about something from the past that is keeping them from operating and performing at their full potential. Marty's and my heart desire is that we can be a catalyst, a very positive change agent to help people develop to their full potential, and by doing so, they will have the total fulfillment in their life. Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and it's through Him we have the fulfillment in our life. We'd like the opportunity to share Jesus with you with no pretense of trying to force you to do anything. We just want to share the fulfillment we have. Let's work together, let's share together, and let's help advance each other. We look forward to working with you.